What?
Hi, everybody. Boy, that took a long time. Man, that took longer than it used to take for me to ejaculate when I was 16. Welcome to the program. We were watching Blood, Sweat, and Tears perform spinning wheels, waiting for this thing to go live. I hope everybody's having a good week. I know that we're ramped up here for another Sunday football game. This time the Browns against the Patriots. They just keep coming and going. And it seems like it doesn't matter how much the Browns put themselves back in the thick of it or fall behind. One thing certain, bad news. So no Chubb, no Felton, and Tack McKinley's out for the game. All right. So Rosanna Dana. It's always something. The Browns
I gotta tell you, Jane, it's always something.
Yeah.
It's not one thing, it's another.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's been one uphill struggle for the Cleveland Browns this year, and it's and I have to sit there and hear things like nobody's been shattered by injuries more than the Baltimore Ravens, and it's like I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about it. Let's break their shoulder of their quarterback, and let's and they at least have, they picked up Le'Veon Bell, and they got, some people, and they have their tight end there, Andrews, and they have Marquise Brown, and they, but we lose OBJ, thank God, and Jarvis Landry being injured. The Browns, nobody can even compete with what the Browns have been up against, and now it's going to be that much more difficult. I wanted to point out that the official New England Patriots injury report is that J.B. Collins Sr., linebacker, is doubtful. The rest are questionable, and that includes Damian Harris, the running back, and he'll be out there. He will be out there. And I'm quite convinced because every time, and N'Keal Harry, he'll be out there. He'll be out there. And Dante Hightower, he'll be out there. You watch. Now, for the Browns, Harrison Bryant's going to play, Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett, Malik Jackson. All these guys went from being questionable to being A-OK. Jarvis Landry, Baker Mayfield, J.C. Treader. The only questionable is Greedy Williams, whether he wants to permanently lose the usage of his arm. But Donovan Peoples-Jones is a go.
What about JOK? Because they brought him off IR this week.
I am not hearing a damn thing about that, but they did bring him off IR. But whether he is actually going to play or not, because he was coming off the injured reserve, and there was no listing on him in the injury report per se. And I imagine that they don't have to claim on something like that because they brought him off the IR. And it's at the team's discretion when they play him. That's what I'm guessing to be the case.
Yeah, and I don't think he practiced this week, if I'm correct.
No, I don't think you're going to see him out there. Yeah. And we'll get into what it all means in just a little bit. First of all, congratulations are in order. Angel Gray is leaving Bally Sports Ohio to go to ESPN. Every sports reporter's dream. Now I have to remember the name of the woman who held her seat before, who used to play women's basketball at the University of Toledo, who's now in Los Angeles because LeBron helped her get a gig. Boy, why can't I remember her name? Nobody does.
Who? Which one?
The woman who was the sideline reporter for the Cavaliers during LeBron's last run with Cleveland, and she ended up going to Los Angeles. Maybe somebody in the chat room knows. I don't remember her name, but she improved tremendously, and so has Angel Gray. And being a former broadcaster, she's come a long way in the time she's been at Fox Sports at the regional level. Good for her. I'm certainly glad. And that'll be a great opportunity for her to get national recognition, which is really, what everybody's shooting for. As far as the Browns situation, I'm going to put this real simple, and I'm going to add T-Tosh. Hi, T-Tosh. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Let's go.
Turn up your mic.
Hey, testing 1, 2. Are we not in?
That's better.
Oh, sorry. All right. Yeah.
All right. So here's what I think. And I just want to point out that I thought the Browns would lose to the Bengals. So what I think doesn't really make a whole hell of a lot of difference. And to try to predict what's going to happen, like the Dolphins stepping all over the Ravens. I mean, this season has just been one event after another. And everything opens up, except when it has to do with Lamar Jackson, so we have to be sensitive about him. They rushed, literally blitzed every single play against the Ravens. You watch the tape of that game, and it kept coming from different directions. The offensive line couldn't pick it up. And there's Lamar Jackson, and he didn't look very escapable, did he? It was coming after him from every angle, and the more he gets hit, he's slower. I'm not saying he's slow. He's fast.
Wait. Let me throw some Baker hate on him for a second. Oh, Lamar Jackson, he's terrible. He can't win it in the fourth quarter. He throws critical interceptions.
Yeah. Well, and did you see what he was doing on the sideline too? Screaming at his teammates. If Baker had done that, he'd be crucified the next day. I haven't even heard about it on Lamar. I just saw it on Twitter, which tells you everything you need to know.
Well, I mean, let me put things into perspective. I never bought into the fact that he is like the most accurate throwing quarterback in the world. No, I bought into his athleticism in a big furry hurry, and he's been far better than I thought he would be as a professional quarterback. And he's very good. All right. So that nobody can say that I'm just going to be flat out bad mouthing somebody. But I will say this. People get a look at what quarterbacks can do and cannot do. And the thing that was interesting was on a number of 3rd and longs, he took a 3-step drop and fired the ball out on the flat, and the guy immediately got tackled, which was an admission that he could not escape the pass rush. No quarterback looks good when their offensive line in front of them is a sieve, just letting, you know what it looked like? It looked like the Mexican border, for God's sake. They couldn't hold anybody out. It's horrible. And the quarterback always gets too much credit and gets too much blame.
Hey, Villanueva from the Steelers now on the Ravens, he is horrible. He switched positions, but he is, I mean, ever since he's been on the Ravens, I've seen him do nothing more than let people by every single time, it seems like.
The Dolphins looked like they were playing at a warp speed higher than the Ravens, and I don't know what the situation was with that. I don't think that Harbaugh is an effective offensive coach. I think that they are predictable, but if you give the quarterback time, 2 things happen. He either finds a receiver that he can go to, or it gives him an area, an open patch of land to run, and he'll get to wherever he's getting before somebody else does. But they were surrounding him. It looked like circle the wagons. He had nowhere to go. And the more it went on, it enlightened viewers that this magnificent Ravens team, who is not magnificent at all, regardless of what they feed us, they should have lost their last 3 games. They've lost 2 out of their last 3 games, but they should have lost to the Vikings too, because the Vikings were way up on them. And they managed to pull that one out in overtime.
And the Vikings game.
Yeah, I mean, they've given up more points than a Ravens team should against, and I'll be honest with you. Everything looked like it was going to be another one of these lollygagging games in which, very little scoring. And the greatest thing happened for the Dolphins, and that's that Jacoby Brissett went down. He's awful.
Yeah, Tua just absolutely kicked their ass. It was
yeah. And it's not that Tua is necessarily the greatest quarterback in the world, but I'll tell you this. He got the ball to men on the outside and down the field, and he gave them a downfield push, and there was no response. If you look at what Tua did in the second half of the football game, had that happened over the course of an entire game, they would have given up 30 points to that football team. And they've given up more than 30 against the Bengals when they lost and got their butts kicked. They've had a number of games where their defense hasn't shown up. Almost impossible to pick these games. All I know is what teams do well and what they don't do well. And in the case of the Browns, they run the ball well, and they have a very efficient but basic passing game. They're not going to have the running game that they need against the Patriots because you can say, well, we got Dearness Johnson, and Dearness Johnson's fine, but you got to spell him, for God's sakes. And how are you going to do that? It's not like you can bring in Demetric Felton off the bench to become a receiver out of the backfield. You're not going to be able to do that. He can't play either. You could bring up one of these guys from a practice squad who's never played with the team before. You can do that. But you can put Stanton in the game and every so often give him the ball, but really leave him in for blocking. I don't know.
And Stanton's actually really good at pass catching too, so he would probably take on the Kareem Hunt role.
Yeah, very slowly. Very, very slowly.
Lumbering.
Yeah. But one thing I do know, the more that Baker is forced to throw the football, the more Bill Belichick is licking his chops, because he will disguise defenses and confuse, and that's what they want. If they can stop your running game, two things are the case with the Patriots. One, if they can stuff your running game and force you to throw, that forces you to play into their defensive strength. The other thing is Mac Jones will get the ball out of his hands as quickly as he can, and part of the whole trick is to hide his weaknesses. And if they score 22 points a game, basically looking at the New England Patriots team, they average 25 a game and they give up 19. So the average is 25 to 19. There's nothing about them. They've had 102 passing first downs versus 104 from their opponents. Their rushing is, as far as their rushing first downs, 63 to their opponents, 54. They win by keeping the score down. That's what it amounts to. Third down efficiency, 54 out of 121. They like to control the football. The running back, who has been questionable but is going to play, I'm sure, who averages 4.7 yards a carry. That puts Mac Jones into efficient, third and makeable, doable, comfortable, short pass, get the ball out of his hands quick type circumstances. Their fourth down efficiency is 4 out of 6. So their third down efficiency is 44.6 and giving up 39.5. So again, defense first for this team. They've gotten 2,149 passing yards and they've given up 2,083. They are not giving up a lot of passing yards. So something's got to give. They only have 7 interceptions. Their opponents have 13, and this is part of the problem. The Patriots are 6th in the league in committing turnovers, which is something that you want to see continue from last week for the Browns when they played the Bengals, is taking the ball away from these people. The yards per rush is only 3.9 for the Patriots and giving up only 4.1. They get 107 yards per game on the ground. They've had the same exact number of offensive plays as their opponents, 570. Everything about them is almost dead even. Total yards, 3,245. They've given up 3,194. This is really incredible. Yards per game, they've gained 360, given up 355. I mean, they have 500 team. They are exactly where you would think they would be based on the statistics. So what do you do with a team like this? And as far as I know, you have to bring pressure on Mac Jones. He will throw interceptions, but if they're getting those short, quick passes, then it won't come to that. You have to get him in 3rd and long situations, and you got to bring the heat like you did against Burrow.
Yeah, you got to force Mac Jones to make difficult throws, because the entire Patriots offense, like you're talking about, it's a lot of getting the guys the ball and letting them have it in space. And if you don't allow that and you force Mac Jones to make difficult throws, deep throws, to me that's your best chance of winning, because he doesn't have a super strong arm. He's not super accurate. He's just kind of a good field general.
Well, he's about 68% completion. I think he is accurate when he has time to throw. But I mean, I think he's not escapable. In other words, he doesn't have the ability to run away from the pass rush like some of the other quarterbacks that we've played this year. He is a pocket kind of guy. And if you can bring pressure on him, you can strip him. That's been done. He will throw the ball up in the air. And you're right, he does not have a huge arm. So if he is forced to be flushed and he's throwing on the run, there's not going to be as much, depth in yardage for the big play. You got to come after him. But it starts with shutting down the run. You cannot allow the New England Patriots to bully you up front and get their yardage on the ground, because if you're never in a 3rd and long with Mac Jones, then you're not going to get the turnovers you need. Bill Belichick is quite happy winning 6-3 football games, if that's what it comes down to. He hates turnovers. I hate manure, but he hates turnovers.
Hey, has this been all year, or did they come out of nowhere? Because I remember at the beginning of the season going, well, the Patriots, I don't know. What happened? At what point did they?
It took time for Mac Jones to get comfortable with the system and with the speed of the game.
And he's the perfect guy for the system, is the thing.
Was the defense there this way last year? Same guys?
They've added some guys, but they've also lost some guys. Stephen Gilmore, big name.
Did Jamie Collins go back there?
Yep.
Yeah, he's back there, but he's questionable whether he's going to be able to play or not. The problem is, and I think it's the smartest thing that they could do, is they molded their offensive scheme knowing full well they have a slow-footed rookie quarterback. But they feel that synaptically, SAT word, he can sight read things and read plays quickly. So what they did is try to take advantage of the fact that he can move his eyes from one target to another, but only short balls that are really out in the flat or the middle of the field and keep the ball moving down the field. They don't really put him, unless it is in a play action mode where they have a 2nd and short, where they can give him a shot down the field. this is intentionally done. Some people would call it dumbing down an offense, but it's playing to his strength right now. And his weakness is inexperience, and you got to put pressure. I've yet to see a rookie quarterback who honestly handled pressure. I mean, you saw Justin Fields literally shit his pants against the Browns, literally shit his trousers. And you know, and I'll tell you something, Joe Burrow looked positively average in his second year facing the pressure that he faced against the Browns last week. And Lamar Jackson looked like pure dog shit. If you would have been told that he's the NFL MVP and you would have watched the Dolphins game, you would have been saying, who's been fucking with me?
Yeah, I wouldn't even turn that game on last night. I only found about it when it came up on my phone when I was doing something else because I said, I'm not going to invest in this. I can't. Dolphins?
Oh, it was beautiful. I
really
wanted to see the Dolphins just dominate them, and I got a early happy birthday.
Mac Jones is, of course, you know, the now infamous ankle twist that he committed. And
yeah, you don't want to get a reputation as a dirty player when you're a quarterback.
Especially for the Patriots. I mean, you're asking for it.
Well, not only that, but the last thing you want is like, well, Bill Belichick has his back. The most dishonest guy that I can think of who's not in jail, okay? I mean, it's like, I want him.
Robert Kraft.
No. Bill Belichick stepped out and said, yeah, he paid his taxes. You know, it's like, Bill, stay away.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So, you know, but he did. He went, you know, that looked like a UFC submission. And, you know, what does it tell me? Well, it tells me that he doesn't have a whole lot of regard for what he needs to do in order to win. And that's why Belichick probably likes him so much and why they drafted him. He's probably exceedingly amoral. That's what I would tell you. And you got to put pressure on him. You got to force him in the pocket and flush him and catch him from behind. Because once he starts moving laterally, he's a slug. You know, I think that he just doesn't have the capacity, and especially if you flush him to his left to throw across his body, he's not a big-armed quarterback who can make that flick throw like some of the stronger armed quarterbacks in the league.
Well, you got to remember, too, so much of his success at Alabama was just getting the ball to guys running wide open.
Well, the receivers in Alabama, I mean, you know, the separation, even in short patterns. And, you know, again, you don't know what you have in any rookie quarterback. And I point this out because, you know, when Baker Mayfield came up, you know, I judge rookie quarterbacks in a certain way because we've had so many of them come and fail in Cleveland. You know, that quarterbacks will come out in the field and they look good, and then all of a sudden it was like they look terrible, and it's like, well, the adjustments that were made took away all the things that they like to do, and you realized that they couldn't think on the fly. The good news about Baker is that he's learned 3 different offensive schemes in the 4 years that he's been in Cleveland, and so he obviously has the capacity to learn something new. Do I think the one he's in right now is the best for him? To be honest with you, if he hadn't made a stupid move when he threw a pick, his shoulder would not have been separated. And, you know, he would have had a good chance of going through this 17-game season relatively healthy because he's got a great offensive line in front of him. You know, I don't know Mac Jones' situation if he has to hold the ball back, you know, for the 2.7 seconds, whether that is going to work. And the Browns just have to exploit that. They got to bring blitzes from all over the place and really go back to, you know, and somebody, I forget who it was, one of the viewers of the program sent me the admission by Joe Woods that he's finally come to the realization that his cornerbacks play press coverage well. It's like
it's common sense. Been
I
saying
could
it
have had a
every
V8.
single week.
Yeah, there you go.
I tell
Maybe
you
he
what,
finally
though,
stayed at a Holiday Inn.
I tell you what, though, I think Baker Sunday is actually going to have a really good game. I think it makes sense for everybody to say that he'll, struggle. Belichick's defense, you don't have the run game. But I think he's going to answer very well to the guys being out, to Chubb and Felton being out. And I think they're going to have to put a heavier pass game on his plate, regardless of what you want to do. They can't ask Dearness Johnson to just be the entire offense. It's not going to work that way. But I think he's going to answer well, and I'm hoping he has a really good game. I think he will.
Yeah, that was an incredible play. I've never seen a play where it was like, okay, one guy has to cover the entire half of the field. just took the snap, took a step back, and went, oh, look at that. Ring! Swing! Yeah. And the guy ran 40, 50 yards down the field. I mean, I've never, I don't know what. Talk about a busted coverage. That whole thing was screwed up. Next on the list here is two of our offensive linemen have been signed to extensions. Batonio, who is the incumbent now, and the follow-up to Joe Thomas for longevity. And that's great. And Wyatt Teller, who is, with a name like Wyatt, is the gunslinger. He is the Terminator. He is Mr. Pancake. That's what they should call him, IHOP. That would be a good nickname for him. That guy just got trucked by IHOP. Yeah. I mean, so those guys are extended out 3 and 4 years, which is great.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Can I say something, though, about Joe Batonio? And this might be controversial, but I've never really thought that he was like a top 3 guard in the league. Like, don't get me wrong, he plays very well. He's always been good. But you look at Wyatt Teller, he's great at one thing, and that's, the run. Whoop,
yeah, just on keyboard.
But run defense, I mean, there's nobody better than Wyatt Teller. Joe Batonio, I mean, he's just kind of solid all around. So, not that I'm not happy that he's staying around, but at $16 million per year, I think the Browns, not that you don't want to keep him around, but I think that was a very heavy price for Batonio. I would rather I would rather Teller get that 16 because I would say, okay, you're worth that, in my opinion. I think Batonio is a little overpaid.
Yeah, but what I'll say about Batonio is when you're dealing with the coaching geniuses that he dealt with prior to Stefanski joining the organization, there was no running game to speak of. There was no discernible scheme. And the zone blocking scheme has made him improved. Same thing's true of Wyatt Teller. Do you think that the Bills would have gotten rid of Wyatt Teller if they knew? He was just a scrub sitting on the bench. But all of a sudden, his skill set is just obviously enhanced. I mean, it focuses on all of his strengths and it diminishes his weaknesses. I think the same thing's true of Batonio. The real question is Conklin and, the lack of durability and,
Well, hey, I have this, I written this all down. I probably said that wrong. I wrote it all down, I should say. I have the entire offensive line in their contracts. Conklin has an out next year. His contract runs through 2023. Treader goes through next season as well, and he's a free agent in 2023. So other than Conklin and Shredder, the Browns have Wills, Teller, and Batonio all through 2024. 2024 would be Will's 5th-year option. So those 3 players you have for at least another 3 years. And, Teller and Batonio, you have another couple years on top of that. But those two and Treader and Conklin are the next question marks on the offensive line.
That's funny, Rick. IHOP sounds like a one-legged waitress. It was funny. I went into a restaurant, and there was a one-legged waitress named Eileen. So it can happen.
Come on, Eileen.
I mean, yeah. What do you say when a one-legged person has a name tag that says Eileen on it? It's like this is just like surreal.
The Leaning Tower of Pisa.
So somebody put a lien on your house. I'm not going to sit here and try to think up punchlines about people who have physical deficiencies, but I think what it says is the Browns really it speaks well with the offensive line. The offensive line is turning it around and giving it back to Baker Mayfield, and basically Baker will be the next guy who signs the long term, because they're all comfortable together. The guy who wasn't comfortable is going to LA, you know.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Look at that bum over there. He's down on his knees.
Randy.
Yeah, that's right.
Let him go ruin the Rams.
You know, what I think is, when I was going over this with Roxanne, it was like, where do you think he's going to go? I said, well, he's going to go to a winning team. There's no question about that. But the winning team has to, it's, you know, Cleveland's a winning team, but it's Cleveland, you know? Cleveland.
Well, and the Rams just let Deshaun Jackson go, and he's basically the exact same personality that Beckham is.
You know, Cleveland rocks only if you believe the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has anything to do with rock and roll. The fact of the matter is, players don't like to come here, and there are countless examples. Ricky Rubio didn't want to come to Cleveland to play with the Cavaliers. It is perceived as a career graveyard.
Well, that's what Beckham said.
And people, you know, Derrick Rose came to Cleveland and reestablished something and got himself up off the ground. And I'm sure that's what Rubio's hoping will happen for him, that he can get back on a contending team. But what it tells me more than anything, and the comments from a lot of people on Twitter, is that, well, who wouldn't want to make millions of dollars and live in Los Angeles? And it's like, not even considering the fact that he has a job to do. I mean, grown man.
Have these idiots actually taken a good, solid look at Los Angeles lately? It's actually not a place you want to fucking go live.
Hey, thanks.
Well, look, he's going to get a ton of publicity.
You know what I'm talking about. I mean, you got fucking tent cities. You got all kinds of weird ass shit.
But he gets publicity.
You got cops saying the LAPD is now telling residents, oh, well, just let your house get fucking ransacked. Don't try to resist.
The only way you're going to get publicity in Cleveland is to do what he did in Cleveland, which is to complain to the media in New York and on the West Coast. Now he's got it in his backyard. That's what it's all about. It has nothing to do with his job. It has nothing to do with anything except himself. He is very narcissistic.
My question is, how long is it going to take for Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp to get the touchdowns and the targets because they're actual real receivers? How long is it going to take for him to get upset now at the Rams? Because those guys, I mean, Cooper Kupp is playing at about as high as a level as you're going to get. And if Odell Beckham Jr. thinks he's going to walk himself,
well, that's what John Johnson III said. Everything goes through Cooper Kupp.
Exactly. So, and honestly, I would take talent-wise, I would take Robert Woods over OBJ. He's the third receiver there. He's all name. It's the same thing when it came to Cleveland. It wasn't ability, it's name. He's a name value receiver.
Yeah. I mean,
well, and the low targets is exactly what drove Deshaun Jackson to fucking say, I need out of here.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell on a previous player, but it didn't surprise me where he went because it fits right into the storyline, and that's that.
Can we brainstorm about the game a little bit?
Say what?
Can we brainstorm about the game a little bit?
Sure. What do you want to? How do you want to brainstorm this?
All right, just want to pick it. Who did the Patriots lose to this year?
I can.
Well, they have 4 losses.
Game film. What can we see in that to maybe figure something out? Right? Any formidable teams?
All right, let's take a look at their schedule and go week by week. They lost to Miami 17-16.
Wow.
They beat the Jets 25-6. They lost to the Saints 28-13. They lost to the Buccaneers 19-17. You can see when they keep the game close, they keep the game close. They beat Houston 25-22. These are not sparkling wins.
Bad teams.
They lost to Dallas in overtime 35-29, gave up too many points there. They beat New York the second time around 54-13, but Belichick has a history of just thrashing the Jets.
Yeah.
Then, the Chargers, they won against the Chargers 27-24, which is an upset, was considered an upset. They beat the Carolina Panthers 24-6. So in the games that they've lost, I mean, obviously you're not going to win games in the NFL scoring 19 and 17 points and that 13. Sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, that's not the type of thing that is going to work for you. But Mac Jones has been better as of late because I think they're using him in a way to control. I mean, even against Carolina, he only threw for 139 yards. Beating the Chargers, he threw for 217.
Well, but when you're playing Carolina, you're going to get the ball from Darnold a lot.
Right. I mean,
all of their fields were probably 40 and in.
But what I'll tell you is this. You're looking for commonalities, T-Tosh. And now that I've scanned this, here's what I'll tell you. Against Miami, they lost. Mac Jones threw for 281 yards. The next week he won and threw for 186. The next week he lost and threw for 270. Then they lost and he threw for 275. They won. He threw for 231. There's been only one game, and that was the crushing 54-13 win over the Jets, where he threw for over 300 yards. And hell, scoring 54 points, you would. But the wins, his numbers are more around 200 to 220 yards per game. The answer is A, you don't turn the ball over to them and let them have the short field. B, you stop their running game. If you stop their running game, you force him to throw more. When he throws more, they lose. All right. I mean, and what you're looking at is, and I could go in to what I would consider to be, games which they lost 28-13, all right, to the New Orleans Saints. And, a game like that, he threw for 270 yards, but I can't through this portal get in exactly. But what I can say is that he probably was throwing over 30 times a game. To me, if you force him to throw more than 35 passes at a game, you're going to win that football game against him. Because he will make a mistake. There's 6 in turnovers. He has thrown picks. The more he throws, the more bad things can happen. God, it sounds like Woody Hayes, and I hate to sound like Woody Hayes. But that's the thing. I think that you stop the running game and you force him into a situation where he has to throw. The next thing is if you get up on them, then you force him not only to throw more often, but attempt larger chunk plays and throw the ball down the field more, where he's more prone also to turning the ball over and throwing picks. So what's important to the Browns is getting off to a solid, strong start and getting out ahead. Being a front runner in this game becomes very important. It becomes very important that Baker Mayfield wakes up feeling dangerous, because if he comes out and he's kind of lackadaisical and he's not his sharp, accurate version of himself, that could get us into problems early. You do not want to get into a ground tussle with this team, because those are the types of games that they can win. These are the commonalities. The more he throws, the more they lose.
Well, here's what I know. And Belichick doesn't care about September. What he really cares about is November. And now these days, when you have no preseason, basically no starters play, September is really the preseason. So, and traditionally his teams really come together October, November and December. So that's where it's at. So it's not the same team that lost to Miami and stuff like that. Are we, all our guys, definitely COVID gone, right? Guys, anybody?
I mean, and again, at this point, we can only assume that they are symptomatic, because and that's worrisome in and of itself, because symptoms for this virus are weakness, and how long will that affect somebody like a Nick Chubb? You hope that this isn't the case, and I have no indication whether he is or he isn't symptomatic, except the fact that they just kind of shut him down.
Well, and they ended up having to shut the whole facility down.
Well, we know he's positive, but he's also vaccinated. So the question is, how symptomatic is he, and how is his body handling this particular virus? And I don't know the answer to that, but you're gonna have to find out, because if next week comes along and we're getting ready to go in and play the Ravens and he's nowhere to be found, then you can know that he's symptomatic and that this is going to play out for a longer period of time. The Lions are the
speed bump in between the Patriots and the Ravens.
Say what?
The Lions are the speed bump in between the
Patriots. No, don't. Not the trap game. I mean, that's the definition of trap game. Winless team, you're looking ahead to divisional rival. I don't even want to think about that right now.
And especially because you got the Ravens back to back, the Ravens will be on the mind heading into the Lions game.
And and that is very true. It's a building climax. The season is like a big orgasm for Bill. And he mumbles when he comes. That's the thing that's really aggravating about him. You can't even make out that he's saying, "Oh God, oh God." I mean, I hate Bill Belichick, by the way.
Did you hate him when he was a coach in Cleveland?
Yes.
Was he not unpopular?
After what he did to Kosar, you bet he was.
He was the first guy. He cut Kosar or something.
Oh, he just badmouthed him by saying he had diminishing skills.
Yeah,
I mean, it was an arrogant thing for a guy who was a young first-time coach in the NFL to say about a quarterback who had given his arms and his legs, his body and soul for the organization. I've always felt that he's a scapegoat artist, and I have very little respect for him as a person. Now, as a football coach, the fact of the matter is, it's a violent sport, and if you can separate your humanity from the game, and my friend Sam Ritigliano couldn't do it. All right? He couldn't watch people just ingesting painkillers and ingesting drugs to medicate themselves because they were physically wounded, and then they became mentally wounded. He wanted to create an outlet for those players, and when he did, they held it against him. He never coached in the league again. You have to have, in order to be a head coach in the NFL, a strong stomach or no moral compass whatsoever. And in the case of Belichick, it's no moral compass whatsoever. He'll cheat. He'll back his quarterback, ripping somebody's ankle out. Whatever it is that he's done, he will always be there when there's controversy when it comes to integrity, because he has none. He will scapegoat 8, 9, 10-year veterans who have won him championships. And when they're older in the locker room, he scapegoats them and cuts them to prove a point to the people in the room that he's still in charge. I think he's an amoral person, and I really have a strong disdain for him.
Not warm and fuzzy.
No. But lots of people can just be real kind of, intellectual about things, distant. But he is amoral. And there's a big difference. Yeah.
What's happening with JOK?
We haven't had an answer to that either, T-Tosh. We know that he's off the IR.
Yeah, I was going to say, somebody in your comment section brought it up. They activated him off IR, or they brought him off of IR, but they have not activated him yet. So he's still not good to go.
Huh.
Hopefully he's back by the Lions game.
When, in other words, when can they activate him?
I guess it's just a wait and see day-to-day type thing. Didn't he just speak with the media not that long ago?
Yeah, I saw that. And
Day or
that's
two
basically
ago.
what he said, that he's just right now he's day-to-day.
Yeah, well.
And once he's cleared, then it's going to be full bore. So.
Yeah, and Tom's in the chat room saying, JOK says he's ready. Well, of course, he wants to get out there. But,
what was his injury again? Remind me.
Yeah, I think that he had a soft tissue injury in the calf, and it wasn't as bad as Hunt's. Hunt's is really bad. When you pull a calf muscle and you have to be basically carted away, you've really done a major grade 2. You're not going to see him for 6 to 8 weeks post-injury. Wow. Now, they took JOK off of IR because what is the rule? He's eligible to come off, but if you don't take him off, he has to stay on for a period longer. Isn't that the case?
I think it's the rest of the season.
Yeah. I mean,
if I'm not mistaken.
And I think he can only be on
3 weeks, and then he has to come off, and they have to put him back on the active roster, even if he can't play.
Yeah, and you can't put the same player on IR for the 3 weeks twice during the season, I believe, is the rule.
Right. That's right. You can't do that double up. But, he'll be on the field when he's damn good and ready, according to the coaching staff and the medical people. And he'll be a welcome sight because he's just another guy who kind of a straw that stirs the drink for the defense. What's telling, what's a very telling thing to me, if the Browns defense continues to play good man coverage, and we don't make the playoffs, and everyone's going to be negative Nancy's about this. But if we have a bunch of guys who prove that not only the starters, but their backups are good island coverage men and are good press coverage guys, that gives us the confidence. We don't need to draft any more tight ends. We don't need any more of that shit. We don't need running backs. You don't need that shit. But we can concentrate on another offensive lineman. Because, Blake Hance is playing very, very well right now, and he may be one of these guys who's suited to the blocking scheme. That's entirely possible. And you got to get a wide receiver. And you're still really light linebacker-wise, with the exception of JOK, who's kind of a hybrid.
He's a tweener.
Yeah, you don't really have, the fact that Mac Wilson is still getting reps snaps in the game. I mean,
I'd tell you what, though, when you're going back to that right tackle spot, I really do believe that within the organization, there's some belief that I completely forgot his name, Blake Hance. I think there's a belief within the organization that he might be the guy long term at right tackle. I think Callahan is really building something with him. You've seen him improve, it seems like every week. And at his contract and at his age, if you can turn a guy who was brought on last minute for a playoff game and turn him into your starter at right tackle and be effective, because that's the biggest thing. He's been very effective. It's not like a dramatic drop off James Hudson.
Oh, okay.
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. But the thing is, that's where a lot of good linemen come from, lower down in the draft, and it takes them a couple of years to really be able to get a feel. And when you get a good teacher like Callahan, sometimes guys will blossom faster. And Tom is right. It was a high ankle sprain for JOK. Thank you. That was the deal with that.
I think one position to pay attention to as far as the draft and stuff like that is center, because how much do they believe in Nick Harris for the future? I told you Treader has 2 more years left through the 2022 season. So that's going to be a decision they're going to have to make, and they're not going to pay every single offensive lineman. So I see center being a position where they go with somebody new, and the question there is, do they believe that who we drafted a couple years ago can come in and fill those shoes? He's undersized. I mean, he's very athletic, he's very quick and powerful, but he is an undersized player. So we'll see.
He is the exact same size as Mike Webster, who played like 17 fucking years in the league.
Really?
Tom, I'll tell you, Tom's coming with his gun loaded today. You're doing a good job, buddy. You're right. Janovich is back. What am I talking about Stanton for? You can't keep track of who's injured, who's healthy. There's been so many of them. Thank you for helping me.
And Janovich back in Denver he didn't get as many carries, but he's got experience running the football. So don't be surprised if Brian, you talked about this. I can't remember when, but you said don't be surprised if they put him back there as the running back 2 behind Dearness Johnson. Get him some carries.
Yeah. One thing, it's time to pick the game.
Yeah.
I want to say this, that I looked at all the national sources. It's all 24, 21, 22, 21, low scoring, 24, 17 kinds of pick'em scores. And there is a greater chance statistically that the Patriots would win. A number of sources are saying the Browns could win this game. And so it's another one of these coin flips. And the fact is, I'm just shell-shocked because every time I think there's, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, oh, shit, the Ravens, what an easy fucking time they're going to have of this. And they just don't lose. They get mangled. It was like the Browns and the Bengals. It was like, oh, boy, we're going into, the jungle, man. And, Burrow's going to light us up. And it's like, bang. I mean, it just goes the opposite way. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be a high-scoring game. We'll start with T-Tosh. What do you say the final score of this one's going to be?
Can you come back to me?
Well, I'll give you a little moment to think about it because Tom is on his game because he knows the way we do this on this show. This is how we do it. Maybe I could do it like this. Wait a minute. This is how we do it. Get a little hard tune in there too. The over-under is 42.5. I mean, that'll tell you that a lot of people are predicting this game to be a lower scoring game. I'll come back to you if you want me to, T-Tosh.
I'm gonna keep it low. I'm gonna say it's gonna be God, is that possible? 17-14. I'm gonna say Browns. because my biggest surprise is that kicker who's living in a car, and all of a sudden he's Mr. Consistent. Yeah, I'm going to do that. 17-14 Browns.
All right, Derek.
34-20 Browns. I think we have a good day.
Well, yeah, we got what's his name, Donovan Peoples-Jones back. God, did he look good?
I feel really good about this game.
All right,
I feel better about this game than I did the Bengals game.
Why not?
Yeah,
Why
Brian.
I'm gonna say Browns 23-16.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are feeling that way. My feeling is 31-20 Browns. I also think that there is going to be, I think Baker knows what he has to get done. And if I just take a look at things, not being a fan, but just looking at it like Mr. Spock would have looked at it on Star Trek, logically. And taking taking a look at the teams week by week that they've beaten and the teams that they lost to, how much they lost to by certain teams, and it would be fascinating, Captain. They're not as good a team as we are. It doesn't mean that the outcome could be completely different, but I think the Browns are a better football team than the Patriots are, and I'm going 31-20 Browns. So, we'll see. The other thing that I wanted to bring up before I got out of here, the article I was reading about Luke Fickell and Cincinnati's, never-ending, Sisyphus kind of pushing the rock up the hill and never getting the rock up and being rolled down to the bottom of the hill again. Small colleges, by comparison, Michigan bypassing Michigan State, even though in a head-to-head, Michigan State beat them. There is no integrity left in college football playoffs. You know who's going to be there if they can swing it. And we've been down this road before. You can be undefeated and you won't get invited. They're wanting certain teams in there. And I'm not saying that Cincinnati would be one of the 4 teams or anything like that. And it was just like UCF those years ago when they were undefeated. And then they're not going to ever get a chance to play one of those big schools. But,
Expand
there's always
the playoffs needs to be done. Should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing that's crazy about it is that they're talking about SEC schools. Well, they can afford a second loss and still be in it. And it's like, what the fuck is that? Alabama, I think, could lose the second game and still be in it. No credibility in that whatsoever. It's one of the reasons I don't talk about college football, because it's one thing when it's fixed in the NFL and people are getting fucking paid for it. But it's another thing when kids are playing their hearts out and not getting a chance at the prize that they have earned a chance to win. And, and it's like, well, you got to wait, Sonny. Maybe you'll make it in the NFL and maybe you won't. And you're taking a life experience away from a young person just because the money, which is always the reason, is in the hands.
To be honest, they don't want another Boise State taking out a number 1 Oklahoma. Yep. They don't want to see that again.
Wasn't that fun?
Well, and why?
Yeah, it happened in my backyard.
Why is it that Alabama can basically do everything they can to give the game to LSU, and I mean that doesn't matter at all? I mean, LSU is hot garbage. I genuinely think I could have made a couple better throws than LSU's quarterback. I mean, they had every chance to win that game, but somehow they still ranked number 2. It's like you're telling me if Oregon played Alabama, if Michigan played Alabama, I mean, any one of these teams, Oklahoma, it's because of the brand of Alabama and Nick Saban that you keep them at number 2. I mean, any of these schools are beating LSU. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And the final thing I want to say, jurisprudence right now, I don't know what innocence and guilt really mean. And now John Gruden is suing the NFL and Roger Goodell. And I have to say something about this because, obviously the things that Gruden wrote weren't exactly in a great spirit or state of mind. But when you have 650,000 emails and you just literally prune his right out of there, okay?
Yeah.
And when suddenly his are the only ones that are being expurgated, and he loses his job and he'll never work again. It's no different than what they did to Kaepernick. When you say the wrong thing and they feel that they are vulnerable, the league will shut you down. And John Gruden said some stupid things, wrote some stupid things, and no question about that. But anti-gay slurs and things of that nature, does that mean that somebody is not allowed to work again for the rest of their lives? And this makes me sick when the Washington football team, this could be a floodgate that would be opened if those other emails would be made public. And of course, they quashed that before it ever got off the ground.
And Gruden's an easy fall guy because even as a coach, I mean, he's not been very consistent. And as a personality, you watch him, and I mean, it doesn't take a special person to look at him and go, yeah, that guy's a little out there, So for the NFL, they looked at Gruden and said, hey, he just happened to be one of probably many, like you're saying, who did some of this stuff. Maybe his was worse than others, but still, he's a guy that they could throw under the bus, for very little,
and he's
pushback.
And he's attacked the league office and Goodell and other people, and he painted himself a big fat fucking target.
And I'll tell you one thing, with the whole Washington football team and all of the problems that in that organization, I mean, if there are people who would be in trouble if those emails were released, and there would be a lot of people in that organization that would have a problem. The way the NFL would choose to deal with this is one day you'll wake up and Daniel Snyder will be no longer the owner of the Washington football team, just like what happened in the NBA in San Diego to the Clippers. With Sterling was just like, and this is very similar to the Sterling kind of thing, a history of kind of bigoted behavior. And the way these leagues handle this is rather than getting everybody in a quagmire of guilt, they will expunge the one person. So don't be surprised if somebody gets the boom lowered on them, and then you'll know what the result of those 650,000 emails are. But unfortunately, Chucky is an easy target, and he couldn't deny that he had written those things, and he can say he's sorry 1,000 times, but it's a very unforgiving environment for these types of things. So let's hope that the Browns come through, man. This is it's important because if we could go 6-4 and the Ravens now are 6-3, we're only half a game behind if we accomplish that. Pittsburgh, if they were to win, could be tied for first. This is crazy shit. I don't think the Steelers can maintain winning football games for the rest of the year. The closer we are to the Ravens, when we have to play them back to back, we can control our destiny. That becomes I mean, if you lose twice to the Ravens and basically in a level situation, you don't deserve it. And if you beat them twice, they don't deserve it. It's just that simple. So, it's 1 week at a time, and let's hope that the Browns get it done. I'm going to go and watch the Cavaliers now.
Hey, thanks. Let's get them.
All right. Everybody, thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll be back again on Sunday, halftime and postgame, and we'll be here to tell you all about it.
See you on the replay.
See you, Key. Until Sunday. Hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.
All right. See you later.